Villains. They're the soul of so many stories. Think about it. In a lot of anime, the ones who stick in our minds aren't always the heroes, but the enemies who cause headaches, who challenge the protagonist's morals, and even make us question whose side we're really on. Some villains are so well written that they completely steal the spotlight, leaving the hero in the background. Today I'm going to show you the 10 best villains in anime, but not in the usual order. Here, the list goes from the least evil to the most cruel, because let's be honest, evil also comes in levels. Some are driven by ideologies or trauma, others by pure obsession, and some are just born rotten to the core. So, grab your popcorn, get comfortable, because this trip into the dark side of anime is going to be long, intense, and full of unforgettable characters. 1. Meruem, Hunter x Hunter. We start with Meruem, king of the Chimera ants. Created as the ultimate life form, he was born to embody absolute power, superior intelligence, absurd strength, and a coldness that made him a predator of humans. At first, Meruem treated people as nothing, just disposable resources. His birth was marked by violence, supremacy, and total disdain for human life. But what makes Meruem so special isn't his strength, it's his transformation throughout the story. When he meets Komugi, a blind girl who repeatedly defeats him in a simple board game, Meruem is forced to confront something he never considered: humanity. Slowly, this cruel king begins to feel curiosity, then respect, and finally a genuine bond. In the end, Meruem isn't remembered as a villain who only wanted destruction. He's remembered as someone who began as a monster, but died as a human. And that's rare. He deserves to open the list because he shows that even the greatest villains can have a side that makes us reflect. 2. Light Yagami, Death Note. Now let's move to a villain who's also the protagonist, Light Yagami. He was a brilliant student, smart, the son of a respected police officer. He seemed like the guy destined to be the hero of the story, until a certain notebook fell from the sky, the Death Note. At first, Light believed he'd use this power for a greater good, eliminate criminals and create a just world. And honestly, we kind of sympathize with that idea, because who hasn't thought about punishing the worst criminals? But the problem is, absolute power corrupts. Very quickly, Light starts to believe he's a god. He doesn't just eliminate criminals anymore, he kills anyone who gets in his way, even innocents. What makes him one of the greatest villains is exactly that duality. He isn't evil by nature, but his sense of justice twists into tyranny. Light shows us how dangerous it is when someone decides to be judge, jury, and executioner all at once. 3. Hisoka, Hunter x Hunter. Leaving tyranny and heading straight into chaos, we've got Hisoka. Unlike many villains, he doesn't have a big plan for world domination or a complex ideology. Hisoka is simple. He lives for the thrill of battle. He gets excited at the thought of fighting strong opponents, and he kills weaker ones just for fun. His past isn't deeply explored, and that only makes him more mysterious. He shows up as this eccentric magician, always with makeup and that creepy smile, ready to toy with his victims before destroying them. What's even crazier is that sometimes he helps the protagonists. But don't be fooled, it's not out of kindness. He just wants them to get stronger so he can fight them later. Hisoka makes the list because he's the embodiment of chaos. Unpredictable, strangely charismatic, and absolutely dangerous. You never know whose side he'll be on, and that makes him a fascinating villain. 4. Orochimaru, Naruto. Orochimaru is the type of classic villain, a genius but corrupted by his own ambition. From an early age in Konoha, he was recognized as a prodigy, but also as someone obsessed with power and immortality. While his comrades sought to protect the village, Orochimaru sought forbidden knowledge. He became a traitor, abandoned the village, and started conducting horrific experiments on humans, testing forbidden jutsus, all to achieve eternal life. He was responsible for the death of the third Hokage. He founded the Village of Sound to expand his power, and he tormented Sasuke, tempting him with promises of strength. Orochimaru earns his place because he is the very embodiment of limitless obsession. A villain who stops at nothing, willing to commit any cruelty to achieve his goals. And like a snake, he always finds a way to come back, even after being defeated. 5. Shishio Makoto, Rurouni Kenshin. Shishio Makoto is cruelty born out of betrayal. He was the natural successor to Kenshin as the government's assassin, but when he was no longer useful, he was betrayed, burned alive, and left for dead. Against all odds, he survived, but his body was so damaged he had to be wrapped in bandages forever. Shishio returned not only seeking revenge, but to impose his own order. He believed only the strong should rule, and the weak should be crushed. Unlike villains who chase power out of vanity, Shishio had a twisted yet consistent ideology. He wanted to rebuild Japan under the law of the jungle. He makes the list because he represents the extreme of vengeance and cruelty. A man who suffered the worst, but gave back to the world something even more brutal. 6. Aizen Susuke, Bleach. Aizen is one of the smartest villains in anime. When he first appears, he seems like a trustworthy captain of the Soul Society, calm, polite, someone everyone could rely on. But in reality, it was all an act. With his Shikai capable of manipulating the senses, Aizen fooled almost everyone for years, building a massive plan to reach godhood. He didn't care about sacrificing allies or enemies as long as he reached his goal. What makes Aizen so incredible is that feeling that he's always 10 steps ahead. No matter what the heroes do, it feels like he already predicted it. He's an elegant, cold villain and nearly impossible to defeat. 7. Griffith, Femto, Berserk. Griffith might be one of the most shocking villains in anime history. He started as the charismatic leader of the Band of the Hawk, admired by everyone. He was even a friend and inspiration to Guts, the protagonist. But Griffith always had colossal ambition. He wanted his own kingdom, no matter the cost. When he was captured and tortured, it seemed like everything was lost. But during the eclipse, he made a decision that changed everything. He sacrificed all of his comrades to become one of the God Hand demons, the terrifying Femto. He's on this list because he embodies ambition in its cruelest form. Griffith didn't just betray his friends. He destroyed the lives of everyone around him in exchange for power. That scene is so impactful, it's still remembered as one of the greatest betrayals in anime. Dio Brando, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Dio is pure evil. Even as a child, he was envious, arrogant, and cruel. When he gained vampiric powers, that evil only grew. He didn't just want to win, he wanted to humiliate, torture, and destroy. His conflict with the Joestar family spans generations, and Dio keeps coming back, more dangerous each time. His ability to stop time with Zei Warudo made him even more terrifying, turning him into one of the most iconic villains in pop culture. Dio deserves his place because he's a complete villain, cruel, charismatic, and unforgettable. He doesn't need a justification to be evil, he just is. 9. Madara Uchiha, Naruto Shippuden. Madara is more than a villain. He's a legend. One of Konoha's founders, but also someone who never believed in true peace. To him, the only way to end wars was to control the entire world with the infinite Tsukuyomi, a genjutsu that would trap everyone in an eternal illusion. What makes Madara terrifying isn't just his plan, but his overwhelming power. He single-handedly defeated entire armies, cornered Naruto's heroes, and almost won. Madara represents how power can twist even the greatest ideals. He's on this list because he was the peak of threat in the ninja world, an enemy who wasn't just strong, but inevitable. 10. Frieza, Dragon Ball Z. And at the very top, the most cruel of them all, Frieza. Unlike other villains on this list, he has no justification, no trauma, no cause. He's simply evil by nature. Frieza is a space tyrant who destroys planets for fun, exterminates entire races, and does it with pleasure. He's the one who wiped out the Saiyans, just because they might become a threat one day. He's the ultimate symbol of evil in anime because he has no redemption, no nuance. Frieza exists to spread terror, arrogance, and destruction. He's the classic villain who's still remembered today as one of the greatest of all time. From the least evil Meruem to the most cruel Frieza, these villains show that evil has many faces. Sometimes it's obsession with power, like Orochimaru. Sometimes it's brutal betrayal, like Griffith. Or maybe it's pure joy and chaos, like Hisoka and Dio. What they all have in common is their impact. They don't just challenge the heroes, they challenge us, the audience. They make us think, question, and even root against them with more passion. So, which of these villains is your favorite? And do you think another one deserves a spot here? Drop your top 3 anime villains in the comments, and if I missed someone, I can make a part 2 for you guys. Don't forget to subscribe to Zen Otaku and hit that like button to get more content. See you in the next video.